Thank you for tuning in with me on Did You Know? I'm going to be talking about Vincent Gillis, dubbed the other Baton Rouge killer. I also have a little video at the end from Law and Crime Network YouTube channel of Vincent talking about one of his victims. So you guys can check that out later. Let's get started. Gillis was born June 24th, 1962 in Baton Rouge and was raised in southern Louisiana. He was a son of Yvonne and Norman Gillis. His father abandoned the family soon after his birth. Gillis was raised by his mother and grandparents, and his mother worked full-time at a local television station. Gillis went on to a Catholic elementary school and then high school and then also college. Gillis also got very heavily into pornography, especially pornography that dealt pertaining to rape, death, and disembowelment of women. The obsession became so severe it lasted all the way during his years of his killing spree. In 1992, Yvonne, his mother, took a new job in Atlanta, Georgia, and tried taking Gillis with her, but he refused, and she decided to leave him behind to live on his own, all the while still paying the mortgage for him. Sometime after his mother left, he began acting out in frustration, yelling at the sky and cursing Yvonne, his mother, for leaving. He was later caught peeping into a female neighbor's house, during which he claimed he was looking for his cat. He was arrested for traffic violations, but released soon after. 2 years later, Gillis met a woman named Terry Lamone through a mutual friend and began dating her. But that same year, Gillis also committed his first crime, killing. On March 21st, Gillis murdered his first victim, 81-year-old Ann Bryan, whose residence was a retirement home. He entered when she left the door unlocked for her nurse. He tried to rape her, but when started screaming after he touched her, he quickly slashed her throat and stabbed her repeatedly, nearly decapitating and devouring her. Gillis later stated that he initially only attempted to rape the 81-year-old in March, but when she screamed, he went crazy and stabbed her about 50 times. The following year, he and Terry moved in together, and she eventually realized his addiction to pornography, but decided to ignore it. Even when he would show her pictures of dead women's bodies, she just ignored it. On January 4th, 1999, almost 5 years after the murder of his first victim, Gillis got bored from the inactive, so he struck again, killing Catherine Hall, a prostitute he lured into the car with the promise of oral sex. He tried to kill her by strangling her with a zip tie, but when she tried to escape, he instead stabbed her to death before undressing her and mutilating her body. 4 months later, he began stalking Hardy Smith, sorry if I got that wrong, whom he spotted jogging in the southern area of Baton Rouge. After 3 weeks, he found her jogging again and hit her with his car, knocking her into a ditch. Gillis then tied her up with zip ties tightly around her neck and took her into an isolated area where he raped and killed her before placing her body in a truck, where it remained for 2 days until he dumped it into a bayou located off of Highway 61 at St. James Parish, where it was later discovered afterwards. On November 12th, he killed Joyce Williams and took her body to his home, where he mutilated it and engaged in cannibalism. He then dumped her body where it wouldn't be discovered until January 2000. After killing 3 more victims from 2000 to 2003, during which another serial killer, Derek Todd Lee, who he admired, was still active. Gillis murdered his 8th and final victim, 43-year-old Donna Johnston, on February 26, 2004. After taking 45 pictures of her body, he took it to another location and dumped it, but took the time to pose it first. On January 3rd, a task force was established to look into the murders of Johnston and 2 other victims of Gillis, and also victims when certain cases couldn't be linked to Lee, who had been apprehended the previous year for his own killings, which sparked fears of 1 or 2 other serial killers being still at large. In April, tire tracks found at the dump site of Donna Johnston's were traced to a certain model. On April 28, investigators interviewed and got DNA swabs from a number of people who owned vehicles that had the Pacific Tire model, including Gillis. When Gillis' DNA sample matched the DNA found on the hairs of 2 of his victims, police arrested him the next day in front of Terry, to whom he apologized during the arrest. Later that day, he confessed to his murders, and his house was subsequently searched. Among the items recovered were news clippings from Carrie Yoder, the final victim of Derek Todd Lee, and a computer file titled titled DTL, Lee's Initials, which stored news and information about Lee's crimes. Gillis will go on to allege that he feared being outdone by Lee. Gillis stated after his arrest and confessions, "It was like they were already dead to me." After evaluating his confessions and giving him various charges that changed multiple times, investigators finally charged him for the murder of Catherine Hall, Johnny Williams, Donna Johnson, which he stood trial for on July 1st, 2008. On July 3rd, he was eventually found guilty of all charges and sentenced to life in prison without parole.
She had beautiful legs. It's one thing that I recalled about her. And I wanted to keep those. I like a good set of gams, a good set of legs. You looking at it, just the curvature, right? Beautiful. Notwithstanding it would cut off of a person. At that point, I pretty much moved on to the head. With the same knife, it went through the throat like that. I mean, it's like cutting butter.